All right. So really, guys, we're gonna have some fun today, and I just kind of want to set up a few ground rules before we let Brenda kind of drive this thing for a few minutes. And the first ground rule is, I think a lot of you came here to have all the questions answered. That may not exactly happen today. We're going to try to answer everything that we actually know. And if we don't know something, I think I'm comfortable saying I don't know. We're going to have that answer to you by the 17th. Brenda, your thoughts on that?
Yes, I agree with that. We'll get answers if we don't have them.
Okay, Brenda just brought up a great question about 4 minutes ago that both of us are just kind of like, I don't know. We're gonna have to figure this out, right? But I think you're going to leave today a lot better equipped. Can you go ahead and show? We're going to show it several times, so don't worry about it. Show the QR code and show it on Zoom as well. Folks, you got this QR code in your email. You got a link today in your email. And on your email that came out between 8:45 and 9 o'clock or so, this QR code, there's a link that goes to folders that have all of the updated training documents that we have available to us. Okay. So you're now going to have the same documents that Brenda and I have been looking at as far as preparing for today. They're going to release these on August 5th, is what I understand. But we don't start using them till August 16th or 17th.
I think I saw like the 15th, you could start using them.
Okay, fantastic. So that's your access to that, or the email. There's a very clear link. Also in the email, Brenda sent over a link to the KCAR frequently asked questions that's updated on a regular basis. And you wanted to make sure they use that link because it takes them to the updates.
It's on NAR actually, and it's all the FAQs they get. There's like 106, I think, questions on it. Don't just like say, okay, well, I read 1 through 106, and then they come out with more. Don't just read the new ones because the answers change. So just kind of stay updated with it. And they probably will continue to change as they get this all ironed out, especially once we first get going with it.
Here's what I think is fun. I think a lot of people are making predictions over what's going to be happening over the next 3, 4, 5 months. And I'm saying, hey, more power to you. Go pick the NCAA tournament. Okay, because that's essentially what you're doing is picking the first round of the NCAA tournament. I think there's going to be a lot of fits and starts. And if real estate agents, we are nothing but adaptable, right? I mean, we've all had to have some crazy adaptations. And lastly, on that email, there's going to be a link to a Zoom channel, a YouTube channel we've set up. I'm going to encourage you to go ahead and subscribe to that YouTube channel. It's for Keller Williams Diamond Partners, KW Olathe. And we're going to put training events like this one is going to be on that YouTube channel. So if you need to go back and watch it again, or if you know agents that need to watch that again, or quite frankly, if you know agents outside of Keller Williams that need to watch it, why don't you just let Nathan know so he can reach out and talk to him? Wouldn't that be a good idea? Okay. So everything's a recruiting opportunity as far as I'm concerned. But let's we're gonna take this down. I'm gonna turn it over to Brenda. And Brenda, if you have a preamble, that's great. But we also have the Slido set up. So
is that where they log into it or not?
Yeah. So here, go ahead and open up the tab, and go ahead and share this with our Zoom people. Okay. And then I want you to do is hit start the interaction. And go ahead and hit present. And guys, I'm just learning this, so just bear with me. Okay. But on Slido, here's what I want you guys to do. Go ahead and log on. You can either go to slido.com and put in 2884549, or you can scan the QR code. Whatever you want to do is I'm just going to ask this little fun question here at first, and then we're going to dive into the real quiz that Brenda has for us. So once you get logged in, you can put your name because this will be a contest, because how many agents are competitive? Okay. So from 1 to 5, what is your energy level today? This is not a good day. And this is a fantastic day. Like you're ready to go. So we'll give you a few seconds to do that. All right. Most are in a good mood. Nobody's admitting to being in a bad mood. So we got some things going on there. All right. We'll give you like 1 more minute. Does anybody need more time to log on? You're not logged on? You're going to want to take the test.
Oh, Rolene, you always win. You got to log in.
Do this at the end. Okay. Some people are sad faces. Okay. All right. So slido.com, 2884549, if that's the way you want to do it. Be patient, people. This will be fun. I promise you. Participate. Participate. Today's, that email at the quote of it has a quote from Pablo Picasso. It says, every day I do things that I don't know so that I can learn. And it's something along those lines. And it's today we're learning new thing. Is there any way this could be made more difficult? Yes, Susie, I can try to do this more difficult if you want. So, all right. So let's go down to poll number 2. New brokerage rules. So if you don't want to participate on Slido, just go. So just do it in your head. So start with the first one.
Sellers can no longer pay the buyer agent fees. Is that true or false?
So go ahead and answer on Slido because there will be $1 million available to the winner at the end.
Somebody wins, yeah.
Okay. So sellers can no longer pay the buyer agent's fees. 100% said false. Brenda, you want to say anything on that?
That is correct. The sellers can still pay the buyer agent fees. There's all this stuff out there, all these myths, all these videos. If you've listened to any of those that aren't from NAR or our attorneys, erase it from your mind. But it's like we got this one down pretty good.
Here's a question. Can the buyer agent be paid from multiple sources?
Yes, absolutely.
All right.
Just remember to mark both those boxes on your contract where the compensation comes from.
All right, so go to the next one. Nope. Hit this little thing right there. Okay, so the leaderboard right now, T is in first place because he answered it in 6 seconds, or she answered it in 6 seconds. I don't know. All right, let's go to the next one.
What date did the changes set forth by the NAR settlement go into effect? Chris just said it earlier.
How many people will answer on your birthday? Yes, it is timed.
All right.
All right, we're still, man, we don't even need to have this training. Let's just
Right,
cancel it.
you know,
Okay.
yeah, I'm gonna sit down.
All right.
If you have a listing using the old exclusive right to sell, do you have to rewrite the listing on the new forms?
No, give me a minute.
Right.
All right, let's go into this. There is a document to amend your listing agreements, and there's one to amend your buyer agreements, depending on which one applies to your situation. It explains to everybody, and it's in the forms that we'll go through, you know, about the changes, and we can't advertise it on MLS, and some of the public's gonna be like, what's that? But it does amend it, and it has the seller agree to pay or not to pay. And so it is use the new listing contract amendment provided by KCRAR.
So to clarify, any buyer or seller agency agreement has to be amended prior to August 17th.
If you are not under contract,
Okay,
yeah, pending contract.
okay.
If you had a big date night planned for the 16th, you might want to change it. If you've got a lot of listings or a lot of buyer agency contracts.
And we can't use the forms. We aren't allowed to use that until the 16th.
The 15th, you can start putting them into place and changing it.
So we've got 2 days.
2 days, that's right. Don't leave town.
And signatures no later than 7. Signatures on it. Dated.
I would, yes,
What if they?
you're late.
Fine, you for
Is there an amendment? So
My guess would
To
be.
change the date, no, that is a NAR rule, that I can't amend their rules, so you don't want to miss that date.
Would it be fair to say that if you don't have the signature, like if the seller won't sign the signatures, you probably no longer have a contract? Is that fair to say? I don't know.
yeah.
If they won't sign it, you've got an issue. I mean, you've got to consider if you can keep that listing, and that's something we can check into, how they want us to hold it. What if we can't get our sellers? What if our sellers are out of the country and aren't responding to us for 3 days, which is horrible. We hate that when it happens, but it happens.
Well, that's a week that a lot of kids are starting school and it's kind of crazy, so.
Might need to tell them that.
What if you're in labor?
I talked to an appraiser while I was in labor. I don't want to hear it.
So,
You're in labor.
and by the way, some of these questions are why we also have this class on Friday at 1:15. And while we're doing this again next Tuesday, my guess is this may cause as many questions as it answers today. So that's why we're going to be really on this. And KCRER, I think next week announces a whole bunch of agent training classes. So you might want to go to those in addition, because if you hear anything that's different, it's not a who's right or wrong situation. It's a, hey, we all need to get on the same page situation. Make sense? All right, fantastic. Let's go to the next question, unless you got anything else to say.
No, that's fine.
All right,
If you have, whoops, that's the same question.
there you go.
Can buyers and buyers agents or brokers rely on offers of compensation that were on MLS prior to the effective date of the MLS policy changes? So you saw it on MLS this week, now it's gone. Can you rely on that? A lot to read in that little time, wasn't it?
It's long.
Yeah.
It's way too fast.
25 seconds.
All right, if majority did get it right, if the contract is executed before the MLS policy change, and by contract, I mean between the buyer and the seller. If it was executed before the policy change and it's a pending contract, then yes, that commission still holds. If you don't have a contract till the 18th, so you wrote your offer on the 17th, you got your signatures on the 18th, you're late. So you want to have it, everything in writing.
Go through that one more time. If you do what now?
If your contract is pending before the 17th,
You're fine.
you're fine. Even if you wrote your offer before the 17th though, and it isn't accepted until after, you're not fine. You can't rely on that. You'll need an agreement for your commissions.
Everybody ready for the next question?
Questions on that
Here
one?
we go.
The seller or listing broker offers a bonus or financial incentive in addition to the buyer agent compensation. Can the buyer broker accept the extra compensation? After August 17th.
Yeah, it does change it fast. I just answered, but I missed one because of that.
All right. So whatever amount is on your agreement with your buyer, you cannot accept more than that. You can. Bottom line, you can't accept more than that. That's just flat out easy rule like that. So if you've put 3% on your buyer agreement that you want for compensation, the seller offers 3% plus $1,000 buyer agent bonus, you can't take the 1,000.
Put the additional in your buyer agreement if offered.
I haven't read anything that said you couldn't amend a buyer agreement.
Yeah, that's what I
Can you add that into additional comments on a buyer agreement that if additional compensation?
No,
Plus any bonus offer.
no, you can't.
Yeah, put that.
No, that was actually one of the rules. You can't say a minimum of 2% or a minimum of 3%. You can't say anything like that.
What about where
That's
it's
the
the exact what they're offering in MLS?
It's not in MLS.
It's not gonna be in there.
Not in MLS. That's gone in the rules. You can see it on the, if you go into the NAR FAQs even, it's all right. It's in there too.
Says you can't add in what numbers or.
It has to be a set amount. That's actually one of the questions that's in here. So you can't say 2 to 5%. You can't say at a minimum of 3%. You say 3% or you say a fixed amount. Or, whatever percent, not saying it has to say 3, but whatever percent it is, or a flat fee.
So if you're looking at a house that has a bonus, you just amend your contract with your buyer.
Your buyer
It's a
agency.
simple thing, right?
Yep, that's what I was.
I would also just say, and by the way, we're gonna go through a lot of scenarios on Friday, like what if this, what if that, and that might be a lot of good for a lot of people. You might start thinking about just what's your flat fee for price ranges and give a little bit over the top and just basically say, that's in case I get bonuses or whatever, but I like it has to be a locked amount. It has to be a locked amount. It can't be floating.
I mean, you can use a percentage, or it has to be a dollar flat amount.
To be either,
Okay, you can do say.
but whatever that agreement is.
They never give us problems for reducing our commission.
That's what I'm saying, though, you can reduce your commission, that's in our control, so I can go ahead and say like, everything's 33%. But I'll go ahead and reduce it to 3% when we get here. But
Yeah, if I'm your buyer, I might not respond real well to that.
I'm just saying.
You know what, but I get what you're saying. You can shoot it high because you don't know what's going to be offered. And tell your buyer you're not, but I mean, your contract's a little off. I'm not signing a contract saying if the seller doesn't pay Kyle 33%, I will.
But in additional terms to that contract, I could say in the event that the buyers or the sellers not willing to pay more than 3%, I'll accept 3%. In the addition.
It feels like that wouldn't be an issue just because you're going down. And the auditors don't get us. This is an NAR though, not a state. I got to kind of keep that in my head. Auditors normally don't get at us for taking less. That's something I was a little surprised they wouldn't let us do a range, stuff like that. So that's something I'll have to ask because it feels like a range.
It is a range.
Okay, just make it.
Yeah.
It is.
That sounds like a 3 to 33% to me.
Say 3%. So right at 5, additional, I'll actually take 3 and the bonus will take.
But that's not a fixed amount. I don't see how.
I feel like they're going to call that a range, but that's something I'll ask.
Here's one thing I just want everybody to keep in mind, and I love where Kyle is pushing back here.
Yes.
I think agents are some of the most creative people on earth. If you give them a 10-foot fence, they're going to start figuring out how to go over it, through it, under it, whatever, okay? What's curious about this is the DOJ has been sitting on the side like, oh, yeah, that's right. Like, you know, and they have been very specific about 2 things. One is if you're advertising your stuff on one of these pop-up commission sharing websites, have you guys been getting emails about those kinds of things?
Yeah.
They don't like that. And they're saying, we're going to be watching who's on there. And then the other thing is if you start trying to circumvent the rules that have been agreed to on a fixed amount or whatever, I'm not here to tell you whether you're right or wrong. I'm just here to tell you that DOJ is watching. And if you want to have that conversation with a federal attorney, more power to you, right? So we're not trying to scare anybody. We're just trying to say we're at the dawn of a new era and we've got to figure out, and I love the creativeness and I think that there will be some creativeness, but this might go back to the statement I made at the beginning. We might start off this way and 3 months later go this way, because I think we're going to get a lot of input from the DOJ once it starts. Just any thoughts on that?
No, like I said, watch all of the questions in the FAQ because the answers change as we go. And I think especially after August 17th, we're going to start having things change. Like Kyle's question coming up, what if this, what if that? There's going to be so much of that.
Well, and to be clear, we're here to help you guys. Like I want all of you to make $100,000 per sale, right? Okay. So I'm not here to try to tamp down your income in any way, shape, or form. I don't think anybody is here to do that. We're just trying to keep you and us on the right side of the law. Because Gary Keller was very clear. I wrote a $70 million check to settle for all Keller Williamses. I'm not writing another dime out. It's all on the franchises now. So anyway.
Question.
Why don't you just put 3% on buyer agency and amend to lower it? Did we cover that pretty much?
We don't need to lower.
Yeah.
Denise?
Well, am I correct? E&O is not gonna cover this, though, correct? Like if we make a mistake in the rollout,
This isn't an E&O issue, really. This is a rules violation, which E&O never really did cover your MLS rule violations. So that's more of what we're dealing with. E&O is, buyer or seller, something went wrong in the contract and now you've been sued by a buyer or a seller. That's more where E&O is from. E&O is not going to cover your MLS violations.
I'd say there's new clauses in January on our insurance too, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh,
All right, let's roll.
Oh, okay.
Oh, our leaders so far, Michael's doing really good. All right.
If a seller doesn't offer buyer agent commission, a buyer broker may choose not to show their property.
just answered it wrong. The answer is.
The answer is,
But you have to answer so fast.
you can never put broker compensation before your client's need, before their best interest. But I do, this is one of those things where it goes back and forth. It says, if they can't pay the compensation, they'll forfeit the house. It says it right in their new forms and in the agreement. So it kind of, I was ready for you, Kyle. It kind of makes you think about it, but you can't choose not to show it, but a buyer can choose not to see it.
But you also have to have a buyer's agency before you ever show it.
Right, so you have an agreement before you go in. A buyer can choose not to see it. Like, hey, I'm at the top of my price range, plus I'm gonna have to pay, 3% commission because the seller isn't paying it. Never mind, let's skip it. But the buyer, you need to tell them about the property and be available to show it if they want to see it, even if the seller's not paying it.
Yeah, the buyer can make that choice. You can't make it.
Right, the buyer can make the choice not to see a home.
There's actually a house on Olathe this weekend. Agents or owner agents selling the house offering $1,000. Buyers want to see it. So I go ahead and call my buyers. There's a $9,000 additional fee commission that you guys have got to pay on this house. I've got them under buyer agency here, $3,000, 3% at $300,000, 90, whatever. They did not want to see it. I had already set up the showing and they got the email. Seller, oh, sorry, the buyers didn't want to pay the additional $9,000 commission. So I was just trying to look to see if it's still. The house in Olathe offering $1,000 for buyer agency. So make sure you're checking that.
I had that happen recently too. They were offering 0.5%. And so I had to have that conversation with the buyers. I'm like, hey, your closing costs are gonna be higher because this is what our buyer agency says. They're like, cancel it, we don't wanna see it. Or, this is similar situations, top of our price point. We're not interested in paying more closing costs.
Can we pause right here for a second? Sean Chapel, can you come up front, please?
Yeah, I would love to.
So,
Roast me?
no, yeah, so everybody, let's make fun of Sean Chapel for 5 minutes. So here's one of the things. Here's one of the things. Corinne, you recently had a transaction where not only did the buyer pay you out of pocket, but because there was leftover closing costs, you turned that into an invoice that said that the seller will pay the buyer's broker because of the closing costs that were allowed. Can you address that from a lender standpoint, how we can think through these things?
Yeah, absolutely. So last week I did a class on it. Part of what we talked about was seller paid contributions based on the financing type. So in this situation, without knowing all the details, is what happened is they negotiated a dollar amount. The dollar amount was exceeding the standard cost, and so there's money left over. We do this today with financing repairs or the seller paying more than what the actual costs are. There was repairs done. So we moved them from the seller to the buyer side to absorb that. And so that's what happened there. So right now, there's been no change other than VA that now allows the financing or the seller to cover the broker compensation. As of today, conventional FHA, everyone else does too. So it's just understanding, and this is what we talked about earlier, understanding what can fall into what bucket. So right now you can do your standard closing costs, you can do points, your prepaids, and your agent commission can all fall under standard closing costs or concessions that sellers can cover. So being aware of that up front and communicating with the lender, hey, here's what we've got, how much do we need, or vice versa. So just that open communication is huge, and that's how I was able to do the same thing recently. We had to pull 3% on a bigger deal. Closing costs were, a third of it or 2/3 of it. Sorry. So I had about a third left over. I was able to get about $6,000 covered on a paint job that the buyers have to pay out of pocket. Instead, the agent negotiated in because they called and said, what's my total cost? So absolutely. That is all day long. We can do something like that.
But maybe your explanation to your buyers though is, hey, there's 6 other houses right now that are just like this one that are all offering a 3% commission that you don't have to pay. Rather than going through this hoopla with the bank and now you having to finance your own commissions, there's 6 other houses that are offering the exact same thing. So unless you love this house, why pay an extra $9,000 out of your pocket? When you go to the house next door and get it for the exact same price that they'll pay.
And for the right buyer, that's the right conversation at the right house. Yes.
And in a city where you have more than 50 of those houses, there's not 6 other houses where I live. So so you're saying that we can ask for closing costs, bump it up for the concession or the fee. And we don't have to stay within a certain percentage of purchase price? We don't have to consider that?
Absolutely. So depending on the financing type and the down payment percentage of your buyer, there's a limitation. So on like conventional financing, for example, 3% is a limitation for 5% or less down. So 3 to 5%, the seller can only pay 3%. Okay. If your buyer's putting 10% down on conventional financing, the seller can contribute 6%. Okay.
Ah,
So depending on what your financing is, there's adjustments that can be had.
Ace, I had a question.
Yeah, my question was just to make sure that how we voice that to the buyer is very important, because can that be considered steering?
That was, I was waiting for that.
Oh, well,
It's 2 more houses.
we can, well, if that's the one that they want, we can be caught out for steering, so I just wanted.
It's more of, hey, this house is gonna cost you 9,000 more than these other 6 homes.
This house is going to cost you.
You're doing your fiduciary there. Yes, you gotta be careful to say, hey, guys, don't go to a house that's not paying commission. You don't wanna say something like that. But
That's kind of-
you do wanna point out, this house is costing you $9,000 more than all of these.
That should speak for itself.
How you have the conversation is gonna matter. And by the way, we're just offering our buyers and sellers choices. And
Right.
we're just gonna represent what their choices are. And then we're gonna tell them, hey, if you make this choice, this is the pros and the cons. And then if you make this choice, these are the pros and cons.
And I think it's important for us too, to make sure. Yes, it's important for us to make sure our buyer does know that that house does cost them $9,000 more at closing than the others. That's our job, to make sure they understand that too.
Because it matters to the future. Do you have anything else you want to say on this, Sean?
Yeah, so Chris and I were talking beforehand, and this is something we'll discuss Friday, and I'll see what I can contribute to that. But what is going on in the mortgage industry right now? I'm getting on national calls that are not specific to Waterstone. I'm trying to hear from all sorts of different perspectives and mortgage companies. And really, it's coming down to really one thing, and it's creativity, kind of like you talked about, with the ability to, if that house that Kyle's talking about, that client says, no, my best friend lives next door and I really want that house. I don't have the $9,000. How can I make that work? That's where, again, we can come in and we can show options of them paying the full 9, maybe splitting with the seller, or potentially increasing the sales price to cover that. And that's something that I can provide, and we can go through it. And we go through the exercise a handful of times. It'll become really easy for you to understand how it really works. But that's really what it's boiling down to is, I was on one the other day with the number one LO out in America is out of New York. His name is Bouchant. And he's like, guys, I don't understand why it's so difficult. And the guy cranks out a 500 million a year, some rate crazy numbers. It's like, this is pretty simple. It's math. And that's, I think someone's looking for like a silver bullet to fix it. It's really not. It's the numbers. And that's really what we're seeing on the national level from LOs from all different brands, even brokers, banks, it doesn't matter. It's really just coming down to, if the buyer's going to have to pay for it, how can we help those buyers in the situations where they don't have the cash? And that's a lot of people right now.
Is there any programs that allow it to be financed without the seller paying it? Or kind of like a funding fee that you would add in to the loan amount?
Short answer, no.
Okay.
Again, I think we're in the same boat. Like, we don't know what this is going to completely look like. Right now, it is either a true seller concession or it's offer more for the home with the understanding that the seller's going to return that in a concession. So that's really what it's boiling down to. But as far as a specific program
The seller has to offer it.
Yeah, to exceed a certain LTV, no, that's just not right now. The agencies are not, foregoing their guidelines.
Question.
How we negotiate the costs and the buyer negotiate seller and buyer agency as we negotiate
Clients, because I think that is a audience for
Yes.
self-buyers.
You don't have to distinguish the difference. And then when it comes to, when we get the contract and it shows whatever the dollar amount is, it's a blanket figure. We don't allocate
Contract.
per fee or per category. So it's just a blanket cost.
It is for you guys. In the new KCRAR contract, the sales contract, it is separated. So if the seller's paying buyer agencies, and so you can ask for the seller to pay some of the buyer agencies there.
You're either gonna have to get really good at the math, which is, I encourage each of you to do that. Or get into a really good relationship with your lender like Sean. And Sean can tell you, hey, if you ask for 3%, you're probably only gonna use 2.5%. That leaves that other 0.5% for play there if you want. So really do that kind of homework up front. Dustin?
So Kyle practices something that I've always practiced too, and that's before they ever walk in the house, they know what they're gonna pay. How are we gonna know that now that the MLS is sharing that information with us?
However, that agent is making that available.
So we're gonna have to just contact the agent before we show their house.
Right, and how are you there's something to think about too. How are you gonna let agents know too? So I'm gonna my thing is I wanna avoid all the phone calls, right? I don't want everybody picking when they're gonna call and ask me and, oh, I didn't know, or whatever. So I thought about, okay, well, maybe I'll try this, and it sounds like a thorn in the side, but I'm still gonna do it until there's a better system.
Brenda'sCommission.com.
Well, you could.
That's what I'm gonna do, Chris Lengquist pays.
Yeah.
And these are my listings.
Something like that, or a text that you text yourself, you can copy and paste every time you get the notice somebody's scheduled to show. That sends out, hey, thank you for scheduling to show whatever the seller is offering, X amount buyer agent.
I wonder if Broker Bay would respond to that in a.
Can't, because it's MLS fed.
Type that out in the Broker Bay and have it send it up.
Will they flag it in the remarks?
Yeah, you can't have it anywhere in MLS or anywhere that feeds from MLS.
For the agent that says we're offering.
Can't be anywhere on MLS, not in the supplements, not in the agent remarks, can't be anywhere on MLS or anywhere on Broker Bay because it feeds from MLS.
So in Ottawa, we have it's a real estate Facebook page that we all communicate, like share our listings. Can we share a listing and say, this is that seller will pay the commission it's a Facebook promotion to our other agents that are part of that real estate Facebook page.
You can put it anywhere that's not MLS or feeds from MLS.
Well, it would be a
So
feed from a copy from MLS, but I guess it doesn't have to be. It can just be a photo, just a flat ad, and this, commission.
however, you put your pictures on Facebook anyway, for your listings. You don't always just
You have a
get
bill.
less link.
You could have a billboard that says, my listings, I pay X dollars or X percent.
What form is being signed between listing agent and buyers stating that they're.
Good point.
That it goes into the contract now. If the seller's paying the buyer agent commission, it's in the residential contract. Now, if there's a box to check, the seller's gonna pay it, and you put in the amount, you will want it there if the seller's paying it, because it's not I think that's the easiest answer to give you is get it on your contract. If you're expecting it, don't leave it off.
So we need to look at that stuff, because before it could never, ever be on the contract. Right. So now it will be on.
Yes,
Exactly how much the seller.
yes, yes.
So is it negotiable both ways?
Sure it is.
That's the entire point of all of this. Yes, everything is negotiable on this.
I mean, we
But
would
how's
have
it
to.
negotiable? Because the sellers agreed with the listing agent about a commission.
But they can change. Like,
Right, but so what I'm saying is, how is that up to a buyer or a buyer agent? How can they negotiate something that they are not in a contract?
well,
So there's a buyer agency agreement with the buyer agent, right? Between the buyer and the buyer broker. There's a buyer agency agreement. So we've established what the buyer agent is going to be paid, right? 3%, we're gonna call it today. So we already know that agent's getting 3%. The buyer's like, I'm gonna ask the seller to pay some of my fee. It's a buyer fee, just like the closing fee, just like the underwriting fee. It is a buyer fee that they're asking the seller to pay for them.
Again, what I'm saying though is if you're, like it's stated on the contract, both sides stated on the contract, listing side getting paid 3%.
No.
Buyer side getting paid.
No, because that's saying,
Only the buyer side.
The seller can actually agree with you, Kyle, that they're not gonna pay a dime to the buyer. But on the offer, they change that and say, okay, I will do X.
No, my question, I'm saying if I'm the buyer, they should negotiate with my buyer. And they're only offering a 2% commission and I see that the listing agent is getting 3%, then part of the new negotiation, is I want the listing agent to get 2.5%, buyers to get 2.5%.
You're not gonna know what's, you're not gonna know
That's
what's,
why I'm asking both for,
yeah.
for on there. If it's just the one, it's
Just a.
right.
Next question?
No, we're
I
not,
mean, we're not a part of, no, we're not a part of the contract.
no.
You're gonna answer this.
Let's go to the next question on this thing.
Commission is negotiable between the buyer and seller. Tough one. So before you get to offer stage, there are 2 agreements already in place, and that's the agreement with the brokers and the buyer and the broker and the seller, right? Commission's established right there. Seller said, I already agreed, I'm paying this and this is all I'm paying. And the buyer said, and if they don't, I'm paying this. So everybody's broker knows what they're getting paid when you get there. I think where people are getting confused is it is a buyer fee no matter what. They're just asking the seller to cover one of their fees in the contract.
So similar to us just asking for closing costs, you'd be asking in the contract for them to pay the commission.
Pay this expense for me, right?
Okay.
Basically, the contract will override the
Listing.
buyer agreement, you say.
Yeah, the buyer agency is going to say that the buyer owes, and it says even in the contract, I know you guys haven't seen the forms yet probably, unless you clicked in there this morning, but it says what the seller doesn't pay, the buyer pays the difference in the buyer agency.
That's what it says there.
So buyer and seller can't, when you say that it's negotiable between the buyer and the seller commission,
No.
they can't change our commission. They can't say, well, I want to sell you my house, so let's just only pay our agents 1% each. Because there's already 2 established agreements of how much everybody's getting paid.
so on the listing side, it used to say that that was 6%. Then half of that was split to the buying side.
Uh-huh.
I still writing my contract up at 6%, splitting it.
It will say, it reads different. We'll get into it. It shows, it says that they give permission to split it. Yeah.
So I would go with it.
So,
Brenda? Brenda,
You're working with the total amount from your seller like that. Yes.
can you hear me?
Yes.
So are you saying that the buyer will pay out of pocket the difference? So the buyer is now paying
Yes,
for
ma'am.
their,
Yes.
okay.
that'll be one
You
of
need to
the,
understand that when they're signing the agreement.
Yes.
Then it's on.
So the conversation with your buyer is, we have a buyer agency agreement. I'm going to get paid 3% commission. In the event the seller isn't offering to pay any commission or the full 3% commission, you are responsible for the remainder of it or the full 3%, whatever the seller's not paying. In the event, I'm going to show you a house that will apply where you're going to have to pay extra. I will let you know before we go see the house.
And so think of it like this, if you were around in the olden days, and really you should still be doing it, when the Great Recession was happening, how many of you ever went to a house and the seller said, I want to sell this house, And then you learned very quickly to ask, well, do you have any equity in the house? Like, are you behind on your mortgage? So if they didn't have enough money to sell the house, they had to do a short sale, which means you had to go to the bank and ask for permission for them to sell that house down, or it had to go back, right? But you still negotiated your money's in there. Now, if you're sitting with a buyer and you say, hey, listen, you're gonna pay me X, and they say, okay, I agree to that, I'm gonna be asking, do you have the money? Like, I wanna know that you have the funds. Because I'm not gonna do a short buy. Like, we're not gonna have an installment payment to Chris over the next 6 weeks or 6 years or 6 whatever, right? So think of it like those old short sales you used to do. You're now guys, you're just gonna have to treat the buyers a lot like you've been treating the sellers.
And you're really supposed to be giving them an estimated closing cost sheet prior to going under contract anyway. This is a very good reason you want to make sure you're doing that.
So it sounds to me like we should probably make really nice with our lenders that as they're getting pre-qualified and the lenders are verifying their cash on hand, that conversation is being had there, because I can't verify if they can pay me, but the lenders can.
I can ask, can you show me your checking account? Can you show me your savings account?
Proof of funds.
And yes, I've asked those questions.
Well, you know, they might think they can pay it because, you know, even though they got estimates of closing costs, this and this, they might think they have that money, and then all of a sudden, I mean, even buyers all of a sudden can't pay their closing costs. Or whatever they think they can, but never mind. I'm just going on a tangent.
We've been dealing with that all
All
along.
the time, yep, exactly.
Right, correct.
Yeah.
Right. How about your buyer?
So I have a question. So let's take that to the next level. You've checked and you've got the money. The buyers have the money. We go to the closing table. My commission is not there from the buyer. Do we not close then?
The agreements say the buyer will forfeit the property. Now, is there something in the contract that gives them the right to be released? You know, if you don't have the funds to close, you don't have the funds to close. Sean's gonna deny them at that point.
Do you know what I just heard as a listing agent? I want proof of funds from the buyer.
So Frank just made a very good.
With your pre-approval letter.
You just made a very, you could use this in your listing presentation, right? Because now if you're the seller and that buyer comes in and they can't pay that bill, you just went under contract and now you're going back on the market. So now your house is stigma, right? So why not just pay the 3% to the buyer's agent so that doesn't happen? Right?
Yeah, I mean, guys,
You got an argument right there.
this is kind of what we're gonna talk about on Friday. I'm hoping a couple of the larger agents will text me after this and volunteer to be like live role. Because isn't some real role playing with buyers and sellers gonna be helpful for everybody? Do you think that might be true? Okay, so text me if you'd like to be a part of that on Friday, because I think that I could be a fun buyer and seller. You work through some things. Okay, but we're all looking for resolution here on how we can move forward. And by the way, I am of the fervent belief that if you get serious about developing your skills around here, you can smoke other listing agents. You can smoke other buyers agents. This is an opportunity. Like we haven't even talked about it, and we'll get back to this. I'm sorry if I go. There's a retainer checkbox on the buyer agency agreement. You don't want to pay me a percentage? That's great. Let me tell you, my hourly fee is $252 an hour. I charge 71 cents a mile. You want to go see 11 homes in Excelsior Spring? Fantastic. I start billing at $252 an hour right as you say, let's look up these homes. I'll go show you 20 houses in Excelsior Springs. I don't care. Okay. And then I can use that to go back to, why don't we just do 3%? It's going to be cheaper.
So in the past, in an audit, and this is something I'll have to run through KREC, I had an auditor, and I might have been one of your deals, wasn't it? So somebody had to join Lawrence MLS is what had happened. It was you. Yes. And she did an upfront, non-refundable commission fee on her listing agreement to make sure that fee got covered and she couldn't be left without it. In the end, she couldn't lose. And the auditor came to me and he said, "What's this for? I want to see a receipt."
I do.
And there was a receipt for Lawrence MLS for the exact amount. And he said, great. And he told me, because your time is worth nothing. Okay. I know.
Sounds like a buyer.
So you had to. Right, yeah. No, that was the Kansas auditor.
You should try to tell them.
Yeah, it was a Kansas auditor that said our time was worth nothing, and I had to have a receipt for any of the upfront commission that was charged. I had to keep a log of it.
Well, that's gonna change, I guarantee, especially
It's gonna change.
because I guarantee, in the world of investments, Jimmy and I have been talking about this, we're happy to help you, but the retainer is X. The retainer is X.
I think what I'm hearing here is, I mean, bottom line, you know, when you're working with buyers, they need to get pre-approved. It is even more important now that they get pre-approved, and the lender has to give them the scenario of, this is what we can do with you. But as you know, right now, not everyone's gonna be paying for this, that you'll have to pay. And so the good faith estimate or whatever, I guess that comes up on contract time. But when you're talking numbers, that they know what their scenarios are of, I'm buying a house, they're gonna cover the commission, I don't have to worry about it. Or I'm buying a house, can I do this? And that way, we can talk to our lender and say, are they good for it? Is this doable? What are we gonna do? What do I have with this buyer? What kind of abilities do they have to move forward in each scenario?
Right. And does their loan allow them to pay all of this? If They already need their closing costs paid. Make sure you have a good understanding with the lenders.
Let's go, Savannah.
What should I tell home buyers and sellers they should know about the policy change? It's a long one.
Yeah.
It goes so fast.
For a
Sorry.
buyer agent using the MLS, you will need to sign a written agreement. Written agreements are required. You do not need a written agreement if you are just speaking to an agent at an open house. All of the above.
It's just way too fast.
Yeah.
Actually, I added 5 seconds to that.
Yeah.
That was fast.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
all the above on that one.
all of the above. All of the above. So I like that you do not need a written agreement if you are just speaking at an agent, as an agent at an open house or asking them about their services. So, because I had concerns about that. If you can't show a house, then how do you do an open house? So at least they've carved out that exception.
And that's exactly how it read on NAR's FAQ. What if it's not your listing you're holding open? There's been some questions about that. That's not what this says. So I'm running off their FAQ that if I'm holding Mary Ann's house open, I'm okay to let the people in and talk about it. There's been talks about making that person a agent of the seller. I said, no way. I don't think that would ever go through for that, because that's not why we're doing open houses. We're doing them to, we're finding buyers.
All right, next. Oh, all right. VA loans do not allow buyers to pay buyer agent compensation. True, Congress is looking at passing an emergency legislation to make this possible. Falls on June 11th, the VA released temporary guidance that allows veterans real estate commission when buying the home. The short-term policy change takes effect August 10th. I altered your answer.
Works for me.
There you go.
Sean gave us the answer earlier, guys.
4 out of 5 of us were listening.
For those of you who didn't hear, Rolling said 4 out of 5 were listening.
Justin Rollheiser, crushing it.
And Colby.
Colby,
You got that,
yeah.
but Justin was.
Justin's faster. Denise Bridwell right up there. Stephanie Smith. All right. Greta. All right. Let's keep going. One last. This could be the winner decider.
Wait, mine left. Oh, me too. Do we have any more?
Yeah, we got one more.
No, mine's not telling me.
That's 10 out of 10.
Oh, can't make excuses.
Here we go.
I get that too.
We better hurry, get in there.
Read it.
Buyer agency agreement. Can buyers and buyers brokers agree to a range of compensation? Please say no.
We talked about this.
You were in this review.
5 out of 5 should have been listening to this. We talked about this. See.
100%.
Yay.
All right. That's fantastic.
See who was fastest on the leaderboard. Looks like we stayed about the same.
Justin's the big winner. Justin, please come to the office to collect your $1 million. See Nathan Denham. That would be good.
Everybody give Brenda a round of applause on that.
So I know a lot of you are kind of used to tipping your mailman at Christmas or your teachers at Christmas. I have a feeling that it might be a good idea to tip your broker at Christmas this year, just, because there's going to be a lot of questions. Is that fair to say?
There is, and I'm trying to get to everything. I've been to a lot of stuff in Lawrence. Their board was on it early. And honestly, KCRAR just gave us this stuff last week. And so I've been attending a lot of stuff with Vern Jarbo and the attorney for the Lawrence, just to hear it early. I've been there, and then obviously the KCRAR stuff's just coming out, and I'll be going to a class there as soon as I can. I'm enrolled for it. So we'll keep you posted as things change that we hear, and call me with questions. I know it's going to be confusing.
Is the amendment, and I didn't see the amendments in these.
New forms.
So there's a new forms folder and there's a change forms, updated forms folder, and they'll have different forms in there. Like you're gonna see retainer, that's a new form. Okay. And we're gonna talk more about these, I'm sorry. And so Friday will be a lot of, guys, just like when you became a new real estate agent, were you expected to read the contract? Okay, so read the contracts, highlight things you don't understand and bring them to Friday, bring them to next Tuesday, because I think we're gonna go over this and do this again next Tuesday. Nathan kind of cleared that day so that we can do this again. Is that valuable?
Yeah.
Hang on a second, okay.
I did not hear.
The KW command, Facebook feeds, that sort of stuff kind of combines with the ML. Is that, if we do like Facebook notifications for command, is that considered going through the MLS, feeding through the MLS if we use that for commission announcements?
You're not on the MLS when you advertise your listings.
Okay, just making sure if it's pulling, if we're putting anything that's feeding from MLS.
MLS will not have any
On
commission on it.
Facebook, we're still
I
okay.
can go into Zillow and edit it and say, offering a 3% buyer's commission.
That's true.
I couldn't do it through MLS. I couldn't do it on the MLS website because that's where they pull it, but I can go into each website and directly.
That
Well,
may
I
be
mean,
true.
that, I don't, the way they said about Broker Bay though, makes me think no. But if you mark for your property's not to automatically feed out from MLS, you could enter it manually on Zillow.
So on my website, then I could put it. Yeah.
On your website.
Well, what's the difference between my website and Zillow and whoever else?
Well, I mean, that, with the rule from you can't have it in Broker Bay, we can enter it ourselves on Broker Bay too, right? And it doesn't show up in MLS.
So it has to be.
And they're saying you can't.
Separate than whatever the MLS feeds into?
It can't be a website that feeds from MLS. And because with Broker Bay, you enter your instructions and all that stuff, right? You go in and type those in separate from MLS anyway. And they're saying, no, you can't put it on Broker Bay.
But our websites feed from the MLS, like
Yeah.
it pulls.
Right. I advertise other people's listings on my website.
Right.
It pulls from them. Me too.
Right.
It pulls from any website that allows it.
That's right, the IDX.
That's the idea.
It's an IDX.
But if you have a separate link, separate list or something like that, where you've entered your listings in that didn't pull from MLS, put it there. But if it's IDX stuff, no.
Could I put a Google Doc together and then link the Google Doc and the agent remarks on MLS? No?
If you do like an email blast.
I like to create
advertise on that just listed, can you put offering a 3% commission to the buyer? So that's an email blast.
Yeah, your email blast, because you didn't pull it through MLS.
Facebook posts too, I would
That's
say.
Facebook, you can do it.
Can you put refer to Facebook in the showing instructions?
You can create a,
Oh, that's a
Link.
good
Refer
idea.
to.
Remarks, client remark, agent to agent remarks.
Okay, so you can put a link in there.
you can't say what it's for. I mean, yeah, you can't say anything
Yeah.
like that it's gonna be for commission. Now, if they go there and see commission, could be a problem.
Wait,
So you can't make any reference on MLS regarding commission. Are you able to make a remark that indicates that the seller is willing to pay X of buyer's allowable closing costs?
Concessions, yes.
Concessions.
word is concessions, not commissions.
Yeah, concessions, you can say,
You could say they're gonna provide $9,000 of basically buyer's concessions.
yes, but keep in mind, we're agents and we do this every day, and the buyer's not. right? So when my buyer sees $9,000, they're thinking, woohoo, I'm gonna get a fence or I'm gonna get carpet, and we're like, no, I'll take that.
What if you're?
That's right.
What if you're putting it in the parts they don't see?
In the remarks, are we allowed to put in a link?
Yeah.
Right, but I do another, so I could say in my remarks, you know, for additional information, visit crossroadsrealestategroup.com. And then on my crossroadsrealestategroup.com, I can have all the information and we're offering.
Not if that does IDX.
Yes, I can take IDX off, right? I'll just,
You can just see my Facebook feed.
yeah, one sort of thing, so I can put references in additional word remarks to visit my website to get all.
Visit my website for more information.
I don't know if they go there and see commissions there and it came from MLS. I feel like you're gonna have a problem. Because the whole thing is it can't come from MLS anywhere. They're making that part of it hard. That's why I was like, right now I'm stuck on this Texting something out through showing, when showings are scheduled.
Just gonna change the language.
We're gonna get clarity on this.
Can you get a sign?
I feel like we need to wait for the showing.
Listen, this conversation is going on all over the country. We're gonna get clarity on this.
Yeah.
Hey, ladies, come on up. So there's gonna be, you know, Secure Title's gonna have some fun with all your new paperwork. Can we all agree with that? Okay. So I just wanted to add, so Jamie, just what are you guys hearing on the paperwork? What are your thoughts on this?
So I think this is gonna be a lot harder than on you guys and on the lenders, as well as for us as title, to be honest with you. We as title will follow the contract. So to your point, put it in writing. And then I will still need an invoice for any concessions that you're collecting. And we'll be looking, does the invoice match the contract? So basically that's all we're looking for at this point.
Okay.
I think things will continue to evolve and change as things roll out, but as title, we're pretty adaptable. We will let you know any changes on our end as things come to light.
Okay, thank you. Get Secure Title in hand. Wendy, is this another reason to have a good transaction coordinator? Yes. So there you go. Listen, guys, we're out of time. We didn't get to, like, we were on point number 1 of 5 that I had for today.
Oh, wow.
Do you think this was a good class though? Do you think this was, okay, so that's what I think too. So we're gonna continue this on Friday at 1:15 to 2:30. The other thing I want to say is, it makes my heart so full to see this many people remaining learning based. What if you were this learning based all the time? I mean, and I mean that seriously, what if you were this learning based all the time? I'm so excited you're here. I'm so excited that you're embracing this. And I'm so excited for the change, because I actually think for the people that, like if I'm Ezra back there and I'm young and I'm trying to figure out how I'm even gonna get started in this business, I'm excited about this because I go, if those old dogs ain't gonna learn, I'm gonna learn, right? And then, so, hey, Juan, would you stand up real fast? Because I think this is a story worth telling. Well, actually, Juan, come up here real quick. We like to recognize success. And at the top 10% lunch we're gonna have on Thursday, I've got some real fun success to share with the top 10%. And yet, Juan, you were with another company, don't need to say who or why or what or whatever, for about 6 or 8 months before you came here about 60 days ago. Does that sound about right?
Yes.
Okay, how many transactions did you do with the other company?
None.
None, okay. And so you got into a conversation with Megan and you started coming to some of the classes and you thought, maybe I need to go to more classes and maybe I need more support. Tell me what made you make the decision.
Yeah, it's definitely support, the education that Keller was offering. I really loved it. And where I was more on my own. And I feel like that was like not a good idea for a beginner.
Okay. Okay.
That's
It's not a good idea for an experienced person. So in the 60 days, tell us what's happened to your business.
well, I've gotten into cold calling a lot and I've loved it so much. I've gained a lot of experience. I mean, I've when I joined the office, I've put my mindset into a work mentality and I finally got some work done.
Talk to me about contracts, man.
Well, I got 2 contracts right now, 2 under contract. And I picked up 2 other agencies a couple of days ago.
Everybody can walk around of applause. Stay learning base. Be hungry. Be hungry. And we will see a lot of you on Thursday. We'll see a lot of you on Friday. Glad you were here today. Give your leadership team and Brenda a round of applause. Oh, one more thing from Brenda.
Go read the FAQ and the link that was sent out this morning. Read that. We did 10 questions. There's 106 on there.
Right.
We could have done this all week.
Thank you, Zoomers.